On today's show, the Utah Jazz are for real. They beat the Atlanta Hawks. The Phoenix Suns shorthanded, but they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's going on up north? Talk about that. And, of course, our favorite segment where we count all the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Jacque Vaughn gets a job for real. The Knicks are mid, and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. For the best way you can help us grow the show, grow the channel, is to comment below. Give me your 2 stars of the night. Bunch of games, 13 games on in the association. Give me your 2 stars. Who stood out the most? Is it Lauri Markkanen? Jevon Carter? Jevon Carter went off. Who had that on the bingo card? Joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
After watching the referees in the NBA today, I'll be applying to be a referee. Just cuz. Apparently that's all you got to do.
Speaking of referees, great plug. Locked On Kings, Matt George had Steve Javie on the podcast. Got to talk all about the Kevin Huerter call and a bunch of referee stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check out Locked On Kings. Today we're getting into the games in the association. Let's start with the first one here. The Utah Jazz beat the Atlanta Hawks. They were up pretty much the whole first half. They built up a 15-point lead. It was dwindling away. The Hawks were going back and forth. This was a cool game because Walker Kessler and Malik Beasley got to return home. They're from Georgia. They're from Atlanta. David Locke told me that Walker Kessler had 2 busloads full of kids that came up to this game from his hometown to come watch him play, which is pretty cool. And then the Hawks took control after in the second half. They built up a 10-point lead, and then all of a sudden, these Jazz, they just don't go away. It's something about the offbeat. It's the wrong note that you play in jazz. It's just inevitable. It's inevitable, and they come back. They get the win, and it's one of the most impressive wins that the Utah Jazz have had this season. And we have to take the Jazz seriously now at this point in the season. We're a ways into the season now.
Yeah, no, 100%. We talked about it before we got on here, right? Like, the interesting thing about the Jazz are like this collection of guys that other teams were like, well, you can go away now. We don't really want you anymore. And
it's
now
the island of misfit toys, right?
and now it's just like them coming out and balling out. Lauri Markkanen doing what he did tonight, and I think you have to give credit to it, right? The Atlanta Hawks to this point were the best 3-point defense in the NBA, which was very surprising. But Lauri Markkanen coming out 6 for 8 from the 3-point line. That's the difference that he can make. Being the 7-footer that, he can go inside. He can make some nice plays on you and different things like that. But being able to step outside, pull up the 3, being really efficient on the catch and shoot early on in this season, really a big asset to that team. And you got to give credit to a guy like Walker Kessler, man. Rookie year, going back home. He's playing 16 minutes. He was somebody I really liked coming out of college and I thought would be able to give you an immediate impact. And guess what? He's doing that. And that's kind of why you look at the whole trade for Rudy Gobert, and you're like, well, we got some big men in here. Maybe it's not going to be Rudy Gobert standing down low, blocking shots and making plays, right? But you got 2 very good 7-footers on this team that you can go to in a moment's notice, and I think that's something big for the Utah Jazz when you focus in on.
Your point about this being like an island of misfit toys or like cast-offs, like all these guys that weren't wanted in other situations, they just don't give up on stuff, right? And maybe it's Will Hardy just being an awesome coach. Yeah. Seems like he's had a great impact on them, but guys just come in and they're like, Kelly Olynyk, he's just not going to give up on stuff. Jared Vanderbilt, he's going to fight for every rebound he can get anywhere close to. Like, Jordan Clarkson's just going to keep shooting no matter what happens. Like, the world is going to be ending and Jordan Clarkson will still be taking threes and taking shots. He had 23 in this game. Yeah. Lauri Markkanen, he's been working out the arms. Maybe not the leg. Maybe he's skipping leg day, but he's been working out the arms and he will never stop and just being relentless with it. They're all talented guys that have just been around, and now it's just a collection of, and I feel like they get overlooked by a lot of teams, right? Like, we see this in the NBA now. We were talking about how the NBA is so weird right now. The Mavs, they lose this game to the Magic where no Paolo Banchero and a bunch of players from the Magic didn't play, and the Mavs just kind of overlook them, and then they get beat. And you're like, I feel like that's happened to a lot of teams this year where they'll overlook an opponent, and then all of a sudden they get beat because there's just so much talent in the league. All these guys from a bunch of different places coming together, and all of a sudden, like, okay, there's no easy wins in the NBA anymore. And the Jazz are definitely not an easy win, which we thought they were going to be. And they're well coached. They've got some vets still there in certain places. And man, they just had one of the plays that really stood out to me. Fourth quarter, Talen Horton-Tucker, who's like cast off from the Lakers. We knew he was talented, but he wasn't like going to be the answer for them at a certain point. Blocks Trae Young at the rim. Then he drives in transition in the fast break, and he kicks it over to Clarkson in the corner. And like, I swear Clarkson was camouflaged. I couldn't tell where Clarkson was that entire play. All of a sudden, it was Talen Horton-Tucker and Lauri Markkanen in the paint, and Clarkson all the way in the corner. He hits the three, and you're just like, wow. All of a sudden, it changed the game. Like, the entire momentum of the game switched. And then for the next like 5 minutes, Atlanta was just so out of sorts. Their transition defense, their half-court defense, like everything was just out of sorts. And Utah could get whatever they wanted at a certain point. They just out-executed them at a certain point.
Yeah, and it was Utah. It was Atlanta kind of trying to scramble to figure out where they needed to focus their defense most. That's what it looked like to me. When you see, right, like I talked about, Atlanta's been one of the best 3-point defenses in the NBA. And all of a sudden, Utah's just knocking down these threes. They're not better than any team has against them at this point in the season. And that what you do best just all of a sudden gets blown up. Yeah. You start looking like, okay, well, how do we fix this? So we'll guard well down in the paint. They start playing a little bit better down low, but then they keep kicking the ball back out to open 3-point shooters and knocking it down. And that's going to be the big difference. And credit Utah, man. Credit the coaching staff over in Utah. Coming in a completely new situation. And maybe that's the biggest thing, right? It's a completely new situation with completely new people. You're not coming in with any retread. I guess Clarkson and Conley, right? Kind of retreads. And from the last.
Rudy Gay was there, but I mean.
Rudy Gay, but for the most part, right? You're coming in with a completely new situation. Nobody there has the ego of, hey, I'm the number one guy. I'm going to be the number one guy on this team. Maybe a little Colin Sexton, but really, right? He's just trying to get in where he fits in. And, Lauri Markkanen's been the guy that to this point has really taken the mantle, but you've seen a lot of different guys be able to knock down shots. And it seems like their team ball, their team defense, their team being able to get out in the transition and different things like that has really been on display early on in this season. And they continue to be for real. Now, here's the thing, right? At the end of the season, are the Utah Jazz going to be the best team in the Western Conference?
Yes.
There's a lot of. I was gonna say. Hard take already. You're going hard already.
Pat, I want to keep my job. Okay, David Locke. Somebody clip that. Send it to David Locke. And no, I'm the guy that put them in the tankers category in our.
You did.
Odyssey season preview. I was the one that organized it, and I put them in the tankers.
I was the guy that was like, hey, they'll be better than y'all thought they were. And everybody was like, you're an idiot, Pat. I was like, I know, but they'll be better than y'all thought they were.
They are.
But no, I think the part that excites me about this Jazz team is that are they going to be there when it's finished? Probably not, right? Like your stars are going to rise to the top. The cream usually ends up rising to the top. But can they be competitive for an entire season? Can they give some teams some fits that they didn't expect to have? Absolutely, and that's what they're doing.
They're the Nuggets from a while ago with like Gallinari and Ty Lawson, and like they're that team, right? Like they're that team that doesn't have like a one star, but they're going to be a really good regular season team. It seems like. On the Hawks side, Trae Young still hasn't figured out his shot. Like he's shooting 38% from the field, 31% from three. Like his shot just still hasn't come around this year, it seems like. And on defense, like you have Trae Young and you have John Collins, and you're like, I don't know if you can build a great defense around both of those guys. But the real problem for the Hawks in this game, besides those things, were like their bench. Their bench just got destroyed by the Jazz in this game. You look at some of the plus-minus numbers, like Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, AJ Griffin, Justin Holiday. Like those are your bench guys. They're all negative double digits. And Jalen Johnson played 19 minutes. He's minus 22. Minus 22 in the game. Brutal for that bench unit. And it seems like that group that gets led by Dejounte Murray at times really struggled in this game, trying to figure out their identity. They still haven't had Bogdanovich play. Bogdan Bogdanovich play for the Hawks. And so maybe this is, maybe he comes back and it gives another player in their rotation and it evens that out a little bit, but feels like they still have some work to do on that end.
I think they're trying to do the staggering where you have like one of the starters in with that bench unit, and I think you have to have a clear cut guy that's the leader of that bench unit. And I just don't think it
should be Dejounte is the thing. It just doesn't seem like they've got it in the right gear right now.
Yeah, when Justin Holiday's your best bench player, and I like Justin Holiday, I really do. He's a Chicago Bull. Like
Okongwu was their best bench player, but
yeah, okay, I'll give you that. I let me say this: when tonight Justin Holiday is your best bench player,
he's best bench
you've got
scorer.
some problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You've got some problems, and I think that's the part where, you kind of look at this Atlanta team and you say, with the staggering, there just has to be more consistency on that bench. And I think that's a part of just finding that right unit, finding that consistent unit that gives you the best mix. And they're still kind of in the mix with that. But that's what happens when you add a player in who dominates the ball as much as Dejounte Murray does.
You would think that it would be easier, but apparently it is not. Coming up, let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, because there has not been good body language, and now there is just not good play for the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's going on with them? What's going right with the Suns? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about LinkedIn. If you are working for the Minnesota Timberwolves, you may want to hire a new coach soon. And if you're going to do that, you can do it at LinkedIn. You know that if you run a small business, say like a basketball team with one coach and a couple of assistants and things, you know that every single position matters a ton, and you want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates. So post your job at LinkedIn. They have simple tools like screening questions. They make it easy for you to focus on candidates with the right skills, experience, and more, so that you can prioritize who you need to hire and get them on the phone, get them in your office, get them on Zoom, get them an email to you quickly. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Pat, let's move over to Phoenix versus Minnesota. The Phoenix Suns get the win in resounding fashion. If you just looked at the box score, you wouldn't think that this game was super interesting. Like if an alien just came from somewhere, from Mars or wherever, it was like, oh, the 5-7 Minnesota Timberwolves lose to the really good Suns team. But the Suns were down. Jay Crowder's obviously out. Cam Johnson now out with his injury.
Yep.
Chris Paul also didn't play in this game. They're keeping him out with that heel injury. And it was just Mikal Bridges, Booker, Ayton, and their bench guys. And they went and they destroyed the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are full strength, really full strength, with Towns, Gobert, Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. I mean, all those guys. And it was just so emphatic that you look at it and you go, all right, what's going on? Maybe you don't do the full Brian Windhorst 2 fingers where you're like, what's going on in Minnesota? Maybe you don't do the full both of them.
Just one.
But something is going on, because you saw the clip of Anthony Edwards a couple games ago where they're not running the play for him, and he's just standing on the sidelines, hands on his hips, just standing. He's in the action, but he's not doing anything, just standing there. You've heard his quotes about, hey, we're soft, we're this, blah, blah, blah. There's a point in this game where D'Angelo Russell was supposed to go back in the game. Do you know who didn't know he was supposed to go back in the game?
D'Angelo Russell.
Minnesota played 4-on-5 for an entire possession before they realized that a fifth guy wasn't out there. There's just stuff wrong. And I don't know if it's Chris Finch in over his head now, because he had that scrappy young Minnesota team that he was leading up, and it was fun last year with Patrick Beverley jumping on the scorers table and winning in the play-in and all that kind of stuff, great vibes and all that. And now you bring in Gobert and there's expectations. And that's what happens when you get to be a good team. What do you think's wrong in Minnesota?
I think there's a part of it that you can put on the coaching, because the coach has to create the culture. Chris Finch is a guy that I said in that series versus Memphis last year that if they had a better coach, they probably could have won that series. I think that he affected that series with some of the ways that he put guys out there, some of the different things he did. I think he's a good coach for a starter team, but as you make a big move and go get a Rudy Gobert, you probably need to find somebody that's a little bit bigger. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not saying to fire him. I'm not calling for his job this early in the season by any means.
And that's it was going to be a tough puzzle for anybody to figure out, right? You have two of the most unique. you have the two of the most, like, maybe not unique is the right word, but two of the most, like, polarized big men in the NBA, in Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, who are like incredible on one end and maybe a negative, if not just a zero on the other end, right? Yeah. Like it was gonna be really hard to make those guys work. And to give Minnesota a little bit of a pass here, Towns and Gobert both got in foul trouble early. They both had 3 fouls in the first quarter. A couple of them were some weak fouls, so I'm not sure about that. But that just took them completely out of the game. They were like, okay, Naz Reid was a late scratch too. He was having some sickness, and so they were without any centers. They went small. They haven't gone small very much at all this year because they've been staggering these big men, these centers with Towns and Gobert. And the Suns just took them out of their game because the Suns know how to play that style. They've played that before. They can play small. They can play against small ball units with Ayton. They can play against small ball units with Saric at center or Jock Landale or whoever else is up there. Yeah. And they really just out-executed them, took them out of their game. And it felt like the Suns came in and it was like, we're the professional veteran team, and you guys are these young guys that we're just going to catch off guard, and you're going to be on your heels the entire night, and that's what the Suns did to them. The Suns, how many did they finish with? When I stopped watching this game, they had 27. They had 31 assists in this game. That's an incredible number. They had hit 16 of their 35 threes, like just out-executed, out-passed. And at one point in the game, Booker yells at the bench and goes, "We play team basketball. We share the ball." Like, I don't know. Is that the weirdest flex in the NBA this year?
I mean, not against the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Because it is a lot of one-on-one. It's a lot of like Anthony Edwards or Karl-Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert. And guess what? Tonight, Rudy Gobert got the ball, got down low, making some plays, got into foul trouble, like you said. But there's just, I'll say this. I think that the part so much maybe isn't coaching that you have to look at, because I think, right, like you have the talent, you have to figure it out. But at the end of the day, the culture of Minnesota, they do not feel like a team. They feel like 5 dudes that play basketball together, or 15 dudes that play basketball together, if you want to go all the way down. But it just doesn't feel like it's a very team environment. It doesn't feel like everybody there is very warm to you know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't know if you know how cold it gets up there, but
I live in Chicago, my guy. I know how cold it gets.
Well, imagine that, but colder.
But colder.
More lakes, more water around you.
But I look at the Minnesota team and I like it's such a weird dynamic, because even right, like you're literally seeing everyone's production lessen and lessen, and attitudes get worse and worse. And it's not like all of a sudden Anthony Edwards isn't talented, but it's just not showing on the court.
He came into camp out of shape too. Like, you can just tell he's not the elite athlete that he was last year at a certain point. And
is this going to be a Luka halfway through the season where like you're an MVP candidate all of a sudden because
I hope
you worked your way into shape?
I hope so for Minnesota, but yeah, that's a thing they have to figure out. It seems like he's already frustrated with the amount of spacing, the amount of things. Like, it's such a puzzle piece to try and put this team together. Like, I don't envy Chris Finch having to try and figure out how to work with Gobert and Towns, Edwards, like not even just Towns and Gobert. Edwards and Russell were like, it's like an interesting puzzle piece to try and figure out, right? Like, how do you motivate Anthony Edwards to be great defensively? Because he has to be. He has to be great defensively to cover for Russell. And then how also do you convince D'Angelo Russell to be like a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter and not just have the ball in his hands and drive all the time like he wants to do? You know, it's like, it's just such a tough puzzle, such tough personalities to try and, you know, manage. And now we're at this point where, now they're 5-7. They're really underperforming, and you're looking at this team going, oh my gosh, like what's the way out of this? Like, what's the way up? Do they just try to keep working at it? Like, all right, let's just keep working on our chemistry. Let's keep working on our defense and try and get our way out of this 5-7 start.
I don't think you go full Steve Nash yet, but I think that you made a big enough deal.
This year has been so weird. I don't know what full Steve Nash means.
Like you fire your head coach. But I think that you made a big enough deal where a decision will be made on what this team will be very quickly. Like, it's not like you're going to wait on this, because you gave up quite a bit to go get Rudy Gobert, and the Utah Jazz look really, really good.
The juxtaposition of those two teams, they were playing at the same time. I had them on 2 screens. Yeah. And I was looking back and forth, like, look at how well this Jazz team is playing this 5-out style with these bigs that can shoot threes, and looking over at the Timberwolves being like, these guys can't drive to the rim and not get hit for nothing. Like, there's no space. And then on defense, they're still trying to figure out, like, Cat and D'Lo. I don't know if Rudy Gobert can save this defense. They were top 10 in defense coming into the night. It's like they're doing something right in these other games. But in this game that I watched, I'm like, I don't know. When one of them just stops paying attention, all of a sudden it's just everybody's out of position, and that's where the fouls and the big guys come from. Is when guys are out of position, their rotations, they have to scramble to catch up to somebody, and then they're out of position, and then they get caught with a foul. Like that happens so often. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to figure out. But the Suns look like they're going in the right direction. The Timberwolves look like they're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, the Suns are an exciting team this season, and I mean, like, they're exciting because it again, right? Like, you're seeing like tonight's game, Campaign. Shout out to Campaign for getting himself back. 23, 6, and 8. Like, I'm sitting there watching this game tonight, and I'm just like, fam, Campaign's really balling out here. Like, he's killing D'Lo. Like, he's killing D'Lo right now. And it's just like, when you see it, it's just like, for me as a Bulls fan, especially, it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Oh, I know.
Like,
he was on Mavs training camp
better
too.
Than you.
Yep.
Like, you know what D-Book is gonna bring, right? Like, D-Book is D-Book. He's taking that step. He's hit his stride.
You know who's awesome in this game though? Mikal Bridges.
That's where I was gonna go.
31 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, a block. It looked like he was just better than anybody on Minnesota at times.
42 minutes. 42 minutes. He had an 8-minute like leg stretch. But he's that important to this Suns team. I think that's the focal point, kind of, right? Like, again, right, another kind of a disappointing night from DeAndre, not kind of a disappointing night from DeAndre Ayton. And I think a lot of people look at DeAndre Ayton as the focal point of that team. But for me, right, it's the Mikal Bridges of this team, because, yeah, Ayton's going to be big. You need him to be the rebounder. You need him to be that big guy. But at the end of the day, right, like, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, you know what they're going to bring to the table. Who's going to be that guy that's just adding the salt, the garnish, whatever you want it to be? And Mikal Bridges can do that, and he does that in every aspect of the game. You need points, I can get you scoring. You need rebounds, I can do that. You need solid defense, I can be a defensive player of the year candidate. Whatever you need, I got it for you.
You need a guy to go out for drinks with you afterwards? I'll be at the college bar with all the people in Arizona.
Well,
I don't know if you
that's what I'm talking about.
Have you seen that clip where there's these people at the bar, they turn over and there's Mikal Bridges just sitting in just like hanging out.
I just want to catch a game, man.
Coming up, let's count it up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Jacque Vaughn with the Nets now. Are the Knicks too mid to keep going? And are Ja and Desmond Bane the best backcourt in the NBA? Talk about that coming up. All right, Pat, let's play our favorite game every single week, where we count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Count it up. Brooklyn Nets name Jacque Vaughn their head coach. They go, and their first order of business after naming him their coach is to destroy the New York Knicks in Brooklyn, 112-85. Jacque Vaughn has had like an interesting background. You can go listen to Locked On Nets. They'll have great stuff on him today. But he's been with the Nets since 2016. He's been with them for a while. He was interim head coach for them before Steve Nash, and then they named Steve Nash the head coach. He has a career winning percentage of 29% because of his time in Orlando. That was really, really rough, and he didn't look like he was a great head coach there. But his quote today is what I want to focus on, because his quote today was incredible. When asked, he wasn't the first choice for the Nets. They like flirted with Ime Udoka, right? They were going to hire him, and then the league talked about it.
Poor choice of words.
He didn't go all the way. Just flirted. They were going to go with Ime Udoka. Public opinion in the league swayed them. And he said, you know what? I wasn't my wife's first choice either. Count it up. What choice were you for your wife?
I want to say I was first choice. I wasn't the first one around, I guess, but I was first choice. I don't know. I'm gonna lie to myself.
All right, here's the real one. Scale of -5 to 5, not 1 to 10. -5 to 5.
All right.
How much does this move? Like, how much does this hiring move you? Like, count it up. If you're thinking, okay, on a scale, like, all right,
you know what,
it's doing something for me, or it's not.
I'll say this. I'll say give me a 3, right? Because I don't think that this all of a sudden turns the Nets into a NBA championship level team. But what it does is you have now some stability with the Brooklyn Nets team, a Nets team that's now 3-1 under Vaughn, who is absolutely, I mean, literally, like, right, we got the reports that Kyrie just wasn't running things that Steve Nash was telling him to run, and then like
that surprises
they
me.
were just
that
doing
surprises me -5. That's what. That's
yeah, you know what I mean? So I look at that situation where there's some stability. The players seem to like him. Kevin Durant seems to like him. That goes a long way for winning games. I don't know if it wins you a championship, but like if Kevin Durant likes you as a coach, he's probably going to play well for you, and that's the guy you want to play well.
The New York Knicks lose this game in like awful fashion. Like the Nets team is in full disarray. You're supposed to be this team that has some stability now with a coach that's been there a little bit, with some players that have been around, and like they just get destroyed. I saw a bunch of Knicks beat writers and people saying this is one of the worst losses I've seen, like the worst played games. The Knicks before this game, John Hollinger had this tweet where they were like the New York like the mid York. What were people calling them? The mid York Knicks or the New York Mids?
The New York Mids, I believe, is what I was saying, something like that, or the Mid York Knicks.
Before this
like
game,
that.
they were 5-5 with a 0.0 point differential, 16th in offense, 16th in defense, 15th in strength of schedule, and they had played 5 home games and 5 road games, and they were 1-1 in overtime. Now they have this loss. This one, I'm gonna let you ISO on.
Count it up.
How much longer should Tibbs be the coach?
Let me tell you about Tibbs.
Just sit back here.
Let me tell you about Tibbs. They're in a no-win situation anyway, and Tom Thibodeau has probably run his course there. The only reason he probably hasn't choked out the owner of this team at this point, or the owner hasn't choked him out. Oh yeah, it gets violent around Thibs. I don't know if you knew this.
Going full Latrell Sprewell on this one.
It gets violent around Thibs. The only reason it has, because like the owners usually aren't at the game because they don't care that much because it's the Knicks.
He's got a concert to perform.
You know what I mean? So yeah, Thibs is probably not going to be around this team much longer. I don't know if that improves this team much though. I think this team kind of just is what it is. Like we talked about this at the beginning of the season. Yeah. The mid is not surprising. That's the least surprising thing that we've seen. And yeah, you know, Derek, just get away. Derek, come home. Come home, Derek. We miss you.
You want Derek Rose? You want Derek Rose back?
I always want Derek Rose. There's nothing logical about it at this point. It's just like, I miss you, Derek. I'd love to see you back.
You know what? I get that. I think I get that. The Memphis Grizzlies got a overtime win against the San Antonio Spurs, 124-122. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane both went off for 32 points for the backcourt of the Memphis Grizzlies. After the game, Ja Morant told Tim McMahon about the backcourt. Top 2. Not 2. I'll say it again. My man Desmond Bane is an all-star this year. Make sure you put that in there.
Count it up.
Who's the best backcourt in the NBA? And is it Ja Morant and Desmond Bane?
They got a shot.
I'll give you some options here. Okay, here's a couple of good ones.
Yep.
Lillard and Simons, pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Booker and Chris Paul, pretty good.
Heavily Booker.
Curry and Clay.
Not this year.
Luka and Dinwiddie.
Not this year.
Here's one no one's gonna say, but it is their backcourt. CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. They are the backcourt because they play with Herb Jones and Zion Williamson and Jonas Valanciunas. Harden and Maxey. That's a good one. You know, you're not worried about that one?
Harden only likes. Well, I can't say that. We're just talking about the backcourt.
You brushed that off like a king that was like brought the wrong color of grapes. You're like, no,
I can't.
No.
I can't say for the backcourt. For the backcourt, I do like that because Harden and Maxey have a really good working rapport as a team. Right, like they forget Tobias Harris exists, but yeah.
Here's the toughest one: Mitchell and Garland. That one's tough.
So out of everybody, right, I'll give, at least right now, 13 games in, right now, I'll say this. I will give Ja Morant his crown on this one because Ja and Bane are generally pretty efficient with how they get their points. And
Sorry, that was an accident.
He's not listening to me, guys. It's okay. Neither are you. But
I was wiping something on the board.
I think they're pretty efficient at how they get their points. And the one thing that I'll say about like what Cleveland is doing, they're absolutely being their timing of how they're scoring is great, but it's still right 9 for 28. 10 for 32. Like it's a lot of like.
No, yeah, you gotta bias against Mitchell for some reason. He's been incredible this year. I'm saying Mitchell and Garland's been out, so it's kind of hard to gauge those guys.
He's been balling for sure. I'm not saying that. I think they play really well together, but like I think Bane and Morant have also played really well together.
They're at least they're at least top 5 for me. I'm gonna stop there because I don't know if they're top 2.
Who you got 2?
Oh, we also have Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. That one I skipped over. There's some good backcourt.
I'd still go Morant and Bane.
Man, let us know in the comment section. Who'd you think is the backcourt? Okay, I wanna get to this one for sure. Okay, so Giannis and Serge Ibaka, we're going back and forth after a practice or a shoot around or something, and. Giannis reminded us what keeps him humble.
You think that he's gonna win tonight, huh? No.
I cannot have everything in life. Cannot have everything. Cannot be handsome, beautiful kids, beautiful wife, great family, great teammate, great coaching staff, handsome, athletic. I cannot have everything in life. I cannot make threes too. God had to keep me humble. God said basically, cannot make threes. Can't shoot. Stay humble, my guy. Dominating the paint, rebounds, dunking on people, Euro-stepping. I had to stay humble somehow.
I respect it.
I can't make threes too. I can't make threes too. I gotta stay humble.
I respect it.
Count it up.
Who has it better than Giannis right now in the NBA? He's the best player in the NBA. He's got a great team around him. No drama. Like, who has it better than Giannis?
Maybe Jokic right now. Maybe just because
The
anytime
horses.
just because anytime he passes the ball right now, it's just like that shot's going in. Like every time I turn a game on and Jokic is on the TV, it's just him like no look passing through like 17 people, bounces off the stands, lands in Michael Porter Jr.'s hands, and he makes a 3. And then I'm like, oh, we drafted Wendell Carter Jr. So maybe Jokic, but outside of that, no, Giannis is the man. Giannis is ridiculous. Like Giannis's team is so good, they don't even send the whole team to beat the OKC Thunder.
Speaking of which, Jevon Carter goes off in that game for the Bucks in their overtime win over the 2 overtime win over the Thunder. He has 36 points, 12 assists. Here are the players with 36 points and 12. Actually, here Jevon Carter after the game was asked.
36 points is the results, 12 assists. At what point did you know you just had it and you had to keep going?
When I woke up.
All right, dog.
He knew he had it.
Dog.
He knew.
36 points is the results, 12
All right,
assists.
dog.
At what point did you know you just had it and you had to keep going?
When I woke up.
It's the silence afterwards.
I love the mindset.
It gets me.
I love the mindset.
All right.
Count it up.
Can you name the 3 other players this season that have a 36-point, 12-assist game?
A 36-point, 12-assist game.
Only 3 others, and Jevon Carter.
I'm going to say Jokic has one.
Nope.
It's going to be obscure, mug.
No, they're all easy.
Oh, really? Giannis?
I thought they were easy.
KD? Okay, all right. 36.12.
36 points, 12 assists.
LeBron? I'm naming dudes. Now I feel like Barkley up here. Hold on.
Who he play for?
Who does he play for?
36 points, 12 assists. They have to have like a high usage.
Harden?
This is amazing. I'm not going to give you more hints now.
No, I mean, high usage. What? I'm giving you high usage players.
The highest usage player in the NBA.
Highest usage player in the NBA.
He made my career.
Oh, Luka? Okay.
Lucas had one. We've talked about the other two players. We've talked about like recently, like within the last 5 minutes. Mitchell's had one.
Garland hasn't played enough to get one. Who else are we talking? Brunson.
Last one.
This is getting bad. This is getting ugly out here. Well, it's been ugly.
He averages like 30 and 10.
Oh, Shea? Oh, okay. All right.
Someone at home is just like screaming in
Probably
in their podcast.
And I'm absolutely just missing it. Dog, who am I missing here?
He's struggling in the hair department.
Well, now I'm back to Kevin Durant. Like I thought.
I saw Kevin Durant in person the other day, and I was like, man, like when do you just shave it all off?
He's struggling in the hair department. I've named all the bald guys, or the going bald guys, I should say.
No, there's one.
I don't know.
The one that,
who do I? Give me a conference, East or West?
East.
30 or 36.
I'm going way over the podcast just because I want you to get this.
I want to get it.
Just because there are fans like that. You are sitting
There's
there.
Somebody yelling at me,
screaming at Pat. Like what?
With bad hair in the East? Who's got bad hair in the East? You said he's struggling in the hair department.
Yeah, he averages like 30 and 10, struggles in the hair department, Eastern Conference, high usage. I don't know what more it's I can give you.
It's so much hair out there. Jimmy Butler's got bad hair out there.
Jimmy Butler
I don't know.
I
don't know. Who am I missing?
We talked about we talked about this team today.
We talked about the East. Hold on. It's been a long night, dog.
This is the worst podcasting. I'm just gonna keep letting it go.
I love it. Thibs has bad hair too. Now I'm just naming guys with bad hair. In the East?
We just talked about him in the backcourts.
Oh, Trae.
Dang!
Oh.
Count it up, count it.
Oh my gosh, that was.
You want to know? You want to know what the best part about that is?
What?
I thought Trae, but I was like, "There's no way he's had 12 assists this season."
Oh my gosh, there you go, guys. Thanks so much for sticking with us all the way to the end of Locked On NBA. Go check out Locked On Sports today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day that will not be Pat trying to figure out who Trae Young is. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. That's Locked On Sports today. Go listen to Locked On Mavs, Locked On Bulls, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye.
Boom.